Hello, everybody. This is Justin Case of America Newscape, back with one of our favorite interviewees, Cricket Aldridge, the bee wrangler from Arizona. Hello, Cricket. Welcome back to America Newscape.
Yay, hi.
Hi. It's nice that you took some time out for us because you're in the middle of a heat wave and it can't be fun out there wrangling bees in this type of heat.
No, it is not fun because you mostly have to get up super early and stay up super late. So, yeah,
And you have to have a
it's
passion for it. You have a passion for it, and that's why you do it.
exactly. I can't imagine somebody just saying they want to do this for,
Fun.
well, I can imagine them wanting to do it for fun, but yeah, no,
Well,
you
I,
gotta want it.
I think we all believe that passionate beekeepers, and it takes a special breed. I mean, it's a bigger picture, and you're all you're putting the bees in front of yourself, and for that we're very, very grateful.
Aw, thanks.
Oh, thanks. Okay, well, Cricket, what do you have for us today? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I was thinking today I would like to talk about beekeeping. So, kind of what it takes to keep bees, and just the different experiences I've seen people have with keeping bees. Sometimes people want to they get all gung ho and want to start, and some people just will research for years and years and then finally decide to get bees, and some people just jump in and get bees and then decide to research. So I'm more on that end actually, but some people are more so. So I thought I would talk about that because I have had a lot of people wanting to learn about keeping bees. And then I know we're going to be having some classes in the fall for kids and for adults who want to keep bees. So kind of is in my head right now thinking about that.
Well, keeping bees is a responsibility. I mean, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah, it is because, and especially here in Arizona, so you got to care for the actual creatures themselves, and then you have to be conscious of your neighbors too. And Arizona, we have the Africanized bees here, and so being irresponsible on that end, you can really hurt your neighbors or annoy them. Um, so yeah, there's things to consider, and it shouldn't be done lightly, I think.
Okay, so give us some groundwork. I mean, imagine that I woke up tomorrow and wanted to keep bees, and I reached out to you. Give me those first steps I need to be taking.
Oh, I'd say, okay, sign up for one of my classes. But actually, what I'm going to do is kind of give you a little brief synopsis of what a class would be like now, so at least you'd have an idea. So I would say the first thing you need to do is figure out if you can keep bees. So not every place lets you have bees, like Glendale in Arizona and Chandler, some other places like that have stricter rules. You have to be in a rural zone. You have to have a certain amount of space to keep bees. So, first figure out if legally you can keep bees on your property. If you can't and you still want to keep bees, then you can find people who want bees but don't want to take care of them. So I have a few clients like that. And so I take care of the bees on their property. So if you wanted to do that, you could find someone who wants bees. And then I would say definitely look into a bee club. So find other people who are keeping bees in the area, because that's going to be really important to support you for not only asking questions, doing problem solving, but also just understanding what's normal and what's not normal for keeping bees in your area. Like our Facebook group's pretty active. People asking questions. They find something weird in their hive and post pictures of it, and then everyone can answer Some people don't answer very nicely, but still, that's just a few people. Everybody usually wants to help. And so beekeeping community is super important. And then educating yourself, finding some good books that um, talk about beekeeping. I can give you a list you can put down in your description of some books that I recommend.
I like that.
Backyard Beekeeper is one by Kim Flodham, really good. And depending on where you live, so like in Arizona, there's no books really about Arizona beekeeping. So you need to talk to local beekeepers, and the seasons are going to be different. When I first started, I got the Beekeeping for Dummies, which is what everybody recommends. And then in it, they have a calendar like January, this is what you do. February, March, April, this is when the nectar flow is. And it's like, not quite like that in Arizona. We don't have winter. So, winter comes around and it tells you to you might be overwintering your hives or something like that. We don't do that. We don't have to like wrap our hives up in tar paper here. So our bees are still out foraging. So one of the things you need to do is learn about what plants they're foraging in each season. So basically the classes, you learn about what it takes to keep bees, your equipment and that sort of thing. Get a beekeeping group, read some books about beekeeping. I had something else in my head there. I don't know what it was.
Well,
It was really important.
let's talk about. Yeah, well, I'm sure it is, and I'm sure it'll come back to you. Let's talk about these beekeeping groups. If you want to keep bees and you want to join one of these groups, you better have some listening skills because you're going to be interacting with people that really know. And you need to not have this I want to put bees on my roof, and it's a lot more complicated than that. And you're also going to need to depend on these people when you have an issue, because you can't call an Arizona department to get help with a troubled beehive.
That's right. We don't have an apiary inspector like other states do. Like other states have some that are really helpful, like Florida. Yeah, but beekeeper group is important, and the Arizona Backyard Beekeeper Group is actually full of a lot of new beekeepers. Um, the ones that come to the meetings are often new beekeepers, and that's kind of fun because our group just goes around when we meet and we're like, okay, what's happening in your hives right now? And then we just talk through it and troubleshoot with each other, and nobody's judgmental, and we try to keep it really, really open and friendly. And you can't really monitor that on an online setting, but most people are pretty nice and helpful. So that's really awesome. Another thing that trying to think, your bees are out in nature, right? You've got them out under trees or other places, and their whole food source is not your backyard. Their whole food source is a 3-mile radius. So you got to keep in mind what your bees are coming in contact with, or if there's food available. Because bees eat flower, or they don't eat flowers, they eat the nectar and pollen from flowers, but be aware of what's blooming. And this kind of is cool because it gets you close to nature, because once you start getting bees, you're like, okay, what are my bees going to eat? It's not like a dog where you put out a bowl of dog food, right? Every day, and this is my dog's food, this is their water. These bees are going all over the place getting food. So you become aware of where they're going. Are they getting water in your neighbor's pool? Are they going far to find food? Is your neighbor spraying their plants with pesticides? Then you can have a talk with your neighbor if you find that that's what's happening. But also you're like, you know what? I need to plant some more flowers. I need to plant things my bees can eat. And then I need to talk to my neighbors to have them plant things that my bees will eat. And it kind of can make a community more connected that way because you're all kind of working together to feed these bees. And people are starting to really appreciate and understand how important bees are, not just the ones that you keep, but the native bees, the feral bees, all the pollinators. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, the bees are the perfect example, not Walt Disney, but the bees are the perfect example of the circle of life.
Yes.
And that is the wonderful opportunity to develop a passion, become a beekeeper, share that with your children, share that with your neighbors, because it's a beautiful experience.
It is. But it's also hard.
Yeah.
It just made me realize what I was trying to think about. Because, it can be romanticized. Like, oh, I'm going to go out and sit in front of my bees and tell them all my secrets. And they'll go in and whatever they do with your secrets. And,
They make honey.
sit there and smell the scent of bees and be healed, which is awesome, really awesome. But there's so much more than just plunking a hive in your backyard and letting it just be, because we're putting them in an unnatural home to start with. So getting a beehive, buying it at the store, buying some bees, putting them in is like it's like that's step one. Now you got to keep them alive, and that's kind of hard. In fact, most beekeepers, their bees die the first year. I hate to say it, but it's true. A lot of their bees die from starvation because they don't know you're supposed to feed your bees if they don't have food. They don't understand what it means to inspect a hive, so your queen might leave because you haven't been in it enough. Not the queen doesn't leave because you haven't been in it enough, but you don't notice that she's gone because you haven't been in it enough. So you have a new queen, and your hive becomes Africanized, or it could just fail altogether that way, or you're not checking for mites, or you're not seeing that the ants are going in your hive and taking out all the food. So you have to have your hands in it every other week here in Arizona and other places and in certain times of the year. It's not just let it sit out there and be what it's going to be. It's an interactive relationship for sure. But yeah, you do have to feed your bees, or they if there's not enough food around. Like Arizona right now, I'm looking out my window. There's our the citrus isn't blooming anymore. The Palo Verdes and mesquites are pretty much over, and we're not going to have rain for a while. And so the things you see out there might be oleanders and lantana, but those don't feed the bees. And so if your bees didn't go into the summer with a lot of food, you're going to have to feed them. And that means sugar syrup has to be white sugar and water. A lot of people are like, no, I'm not going to feed my bees white sugar, but that's the closest thing to nectar that we have. And sometimes you can feed them pollen substitute to help the brood production. But, those are things you're not going to know maybe if you're not in a community group that's talking about it. And the benefit also of being in a group is that you can do bulk purchases of things like pollen substitute, queens, things like that. So it's really awesome to be in a beekeeping group. I recommend.
Well, I think people will find kindred spirits, and they'll find people that are trying to develop the same passion that they're wanting to develop. You have to get in it to actually acquire the passion.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny to watch. Some people just want to jump in, like I said. They hear about it, they want a flow hive, they get the bees, and they're like, I'm just gonna, have honey on tap all the time. And then there's other people that get in, and then they start realizing, oh, what are my bees doing? And they research and they find out, and then they watch and they see something else and they research that. So it's you're researching, you're learning, and that's really fascinating. So yeah, there are people that just want the honey, and think that it's just honey on tap.
Well, there cricket is when we publish this, it will draw advertising from YouTube for that fancy five
Oh
six
yes,
hundred dollar hive with the spigot on it, and it infers that if I set up that hive, I can just go out and get honey from the spigot whenever I want it.
yes. And so that's called the flow hive out of Australia, and it's had some good and bad things. It definitely has made people want to keep bees more.
Right.
But they do think they just need to put it out there, put this on, and in a few months you just watch it fill up. When it's done, put the jar under, and there you're done. But you actually have to that top part of the hive that has those frames in it, the flow frames. You don't even put that on your hive until there's a nectar flow and until that bottom box of brood that you inspect every other week is full and it's the right time of year, and then you can put that on with a queen excluder, because if the queen gets up there and lays eggs, it doesn't work. So yeah, there's a lot to it that people don't realize, and I've known people that have flow hives and love them, but I don't think it's a beginner beekeeper thing.
Well,
I think it's like extra, like, oh, this is a neat way to harvest honey from my hive.
well, it's
Um,
it's kind of like a
yeah,
Tesla car. If you have enough money, you can have one of these things, but it might not be the most efficient way to get around.
right.
But it does infer that even a dummy like me can spend all this money, get this magic hive, and I can go out and get honey whenever I want. And they don't really have any of
Yeah.
those disclaimers that you're talking about.
Yes, and actually we had a beekeeping class 2 weeks ago, and this little boy, 6 years old, cutest, smartest little kid I've ever seen, came in. He's like, um, I have wanted to do this my whole life, and we want to get a flow hive. And by the end of the class, they decided they didn't want to get a flow hive, but instead, spending your money instead of on a flow hive, spend your money on an Apimaye hive, which is the best hive for your bees. So they're purchasing an Apimaye hive, which I highly recommend. And so I was really happy that had changed their minds, because the flow hive is good for people. I mean, that's the point of it, for you to get honey out easily. The Apimaye hive is good for the bees. It's like a Yeti cooler of hives. I think I've talked about it here before, but it is insulated hive with all the cool gadgety parts, built-in feeder, everything you need to care for your bees, not just get honey from your bees. So Apimaye hive is my favorite hive.
Well, yeah, and you've explained to me before, because I didn't understand it. It's not really about the honey. It's about keeping those bees healthy and letting them do what they do.
Exactly. And the honey, bees are going to store nectar. They'll store it and keep storing it the more room you give them. And if they run out of space, sometimes they will leave. They'll swarm, or they might just fill in all the spaces the queen needs to lay eggs. So they'll just keep storing it. So when for a beekeeper, we give them a certain allotted amount of space for their food source. So when they fill up this box of honey, that's theirs, and that's what they can keep. Anything over that is for us. So the majority of your time is spent caring for the bees to make them strong, to make them healthy, so that they can pollinate, so they can live and take care of themselves. And then you get to have the benefit of any extra that they have.
Well, yeah, and the beekeepers take care of the bees, and the bees take care of all of us. I mean, when you stop and think about it, you put it in perspective. The bees take care of all of us.
Yeah, bees are they're so amazing. I don't know if I told you that they say that the city of Sparta, or the city state of Sparta, was based on observations of beehives and how they work. Like all through history, honeybees, specifically honeybees, because they're different than other bees in that they live in big colonies, then they have a structured organization that's different than solitary bees. And people have just observed them for thousands of years and learned so much by just watching them, which is the cool part of beekeeping. Watching how they organize things, watching how they uh, store their food, how they work together, how they're just this super organism. And I think our world has learned a lot more, historically speaking, just from observing the bees doing what they do. So there's cool books about bees in history and art that explain all these things. And you're just like, wow, Aristotle studied bees and he learned things from them. And the Greeks learned things. The Israelites learned things from them. And just all through history, all the cultures that have had bees have learned from the bees, not just had their honey, not just had their wax, but they learned kind of just how to run an organization.
A society unto itself. Hey, I don't want to jump into extractions because we've done that, but you've run into huge colonies of bees in some of these extraction projects, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like hives
Yes.
and hives worth of bees.
Yep. Yep. And last night we just did one up in a stucco building in the arch. The bees had found a hole and they just built in the space. I mean, it was huge comb pieces, and it was sticky mess. I just recently got the honey out of my hair.
well,
Yeah,
that's good. Honey conditioner.
it is, right? That's true. It's good for you. Honey is good for you. Honey's medicine. It's good for your skin. It's good for everything. So, yeah. But what were you thinking with the extractions? I probably went a different
No,
direction
no,
than
no.
what you're
It's. I think a lot of people don't realize that a hive has a certain an optimal population. When you set up one of your
thinking.
hives, there must be a perfect number of bees. But some of these, when you go recover bees from properties, there's 10 times that many bees. Correct?
Yeah, bees will they'll grow to fill a space. Um, so if it's an ideal environment for them, they will just keep growing and growing. Until they've fit it as and they've used the space as well as they want to, then they'll reproduce that colony and split. But yeah, there's buildings that have just been perfect environments for bees and they've lived there for years and years. Of course, it's not always the same bees because when they do split, they do swarm, the queen goes with them and a new queen emerges and mates with new drones out there. So the genetics change a bit, but they can still occupy that space for years and years and grow. And then it's just super cool to watch. It's just so cool because you can see, like, here's old comb that's dark and strong, and then here's new comb that's pale and fragile, and just how they use it. It's pretty cool.
What is cool, Cricket? All right, back to. I want to get some bees. I need to do some
Mm-hmm.
research. I need to get a. I better find a club, and we're going to give some links to some of the community groups, and I think that is very, very important. You don't want to go buy a lion from Walmart and become a lion tamer, and in essence, this is the same complexity. You need to know what you're doing, or know, and reach out to people that really know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's true. Um, when I started keeping bees, there really wasn't. There was one group here, but I think they had kind of not. They forgot what it was like to be new. So it wasn't very useful to me. And that's why we started the Arizona Backyard Beekeepers and try to keep it very new beekeeper friendly. Because, like any group, you can get your group and then you kind of grow together and forget that there's other people down here
Right.
that didn't start when you started. So making sure you keep those connections. You make sure that the older beekeepers know that their responsibility is to mentor and help the younger or newer beekeepers, because some of the newer beekeepers are 70 years old, so that's kind of a fun thing. um, but yeah, a group's super important.
Well, and the group needs to manage itself well, and all the new members coming in need to assimilate to that group and come in there and enjoy it, because it can be an extremely rewarding journey.
Yeah, and what's really cool is when a group, as it matures, it starts to do outreach, starts to look at the community at large, starts to say, I want to go talk to children in elementary schools. And so then go to Rotary clubs, go to whoever wants to hear about bees. Now you can kind of have a little speakers, I
Bureau.
don't know what it's called,
It's called a
group, but
bureau.
you've got a group of people that now you build together. You have a base knowledge, and then you can go share it with other people. So that's kind of cool about beekeeping groups, because really there are lots of schools and organizations that call me and say, "Hey, do you guys do speaking at elementary schools, or can you speak at this? We want to learn about bees." And so it's just, that's rewarding. There's a space for anybody in a beekeeping group. If you want to be a leader, if you want to help guide, if you want to be a mentor, if you want to help do the website, if you want to help do a newsletter, or go out and manage the speakers. I mean, there's so many things that people can find purpose doing, that they love doing those kinds of things already, and it's one of their strengths they can use for the community. So that's kind of a cool thing that you can do, which I think a lot of retired people find, in any kind of group like that. You kind of find a new purpose for all the skills that you've built up in yourself through all of your years. Now you get to use it in a new kind of passion. And I love talking to people like that.
So I don't have to be a beekeeper. I can just be a help the beekeepers kind of person and show up at the bee club.
You could actually. We have people in our club who don't keep bees. They just love bees. And some of those people help with the honeybee festival. Some of them help, they'll do fundraising things, or even just tell people about, call a beekeeper instead of an exterminator.
Right, exactly. Okay, you dropped it, Cricket. Let's give us an update on the honey festival.
Yes. Well, it's still November 11th, which is Veterans Day. We're still, yeah, I've been so busy, honestly, that I need to set up. Yesterday, I'm like, I got to set up my meetings. We've got to start posting, advertising. But it's going to be pretty awesome. Always have speakers that, if you want to be a new beekeeper, last year we had 3 intro to beekeeping classes, and it's all free. So this is a perfect time, if you're interested in bees at all, to come and learn about bees, meet other beekeepers, join the club, or if you even just want to help put the festival on, we'd love that too. So yeah, the Honeybee Festival, this is our 7th one. Our
Wow.
7th one, yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
one thing I'll tell everybody: these beekeepers and these people with the passion for the bees are all beautiful people. So, if nothing else, come out and celebrate that.
That's right. And it's not just beekeepers in Phoenix. We have like the Prescott Beekeepers Club. Tucson comes up. I'd really love Yuma to come. So we're trying to broaden the community of beekeepers, so it's not just our city, but all the cities in our area come together and support each other and celebrate bees.
Right, and what they do for us. Well, Cricket, I could talk to you all day as usual, but do you want to leave us with a couple final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Well, I guess really, since I really came into this wanting to talk about people who are interested in keeping bees, is that I really encourage you to seek out a group in your area. And if there isn't a group in your area, consider starting one. Other beekeeping groups like ours, the Arizona Backyard Beekeepers, would be happy to help you start a group. Whether you have bees or not, you can start learning about bees together, and you can even call groups that have beekeepers, someone that you know who's a beekeeper, to come talk to you. But you totally can have a beekeeping group started without having bees, and I super encourage that, because someone out there is wanting to keep bees and looking for someone else like you, and that's a great way to start.
You could be like a satellite branch of the Backyard Beekeepers Club.
You totally could. I'll send you my newsletter. It's white branded.
Well, Cricket, I think this was a
Quite
wonderful.
simple.
This was a wonderful conversation, and it is a tremendous responsibility, but it's also extremely rewarding.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's wonderful, and you are making a difference when you keep bees.
And that's why we're here. Cricket, everybody, this has been Cricket Aldridge and Justin Case bringing you American Awesome. This is put on by American Newscape, and we would encourage you to check out the Read More. Look at the links that we've provided. We're going to provide you some links to some books. We're going to provide you links to Cricket and her associations. And while you're here, why don't you subscribe to this channel and catch Cricket the next time she's on.